Next on KQED Newsroom, Contra Costa County under fire for allegedly mistreating teens in juvenile hall. Squalor, security problems, and mismanagement. An investigation of Richmond's public housing agency.
This is a health hazard to me. Bugs. I don't do bugs. I don't do mice.
And the president of the Golden State Warriors discusses Michael Sam and the debate over sexual orientation in professional sports.
This is kind of an exclamation point on the things that have happened in our society and certainly in sports over the last 3 years.
Good evening and welcome to KQED Newsroom. I'm Thuy Vu. In a rare move, the federal government is weighing in on a lawsuit challenging how youth with disabilities are treated in Contra Costa County Juvenile Hall. Disability rights advocates filed the original suit, charging that some teens are denied special education and rehabilitation services and kept in isolation for up to 23 hours a day. Lawyers heard from family members about the conditions.
He has actually been kept in solitary confinement for as long as, I believe, up to 3 weeks to a month. No schooling, none whatsoever, the whole 3 weeks that he's in solitary confinement.
The allegations have led to finger-pointing amid a larger debate about such practices. Joining me now to discuss the case are Daffodil Altan, producer at the Center for Investigative Reporting, Tom Vacar, KTVU consumer editor, and Jill Tucker, San Francisco Chronicle education writer. Jill, let's begin with you. How many disabled juveniles are locked up in solitary confinement in Contra Costa County, and what is the significance of this intervention by the federal departments of justice and education?
Well, there are about 30% of the kids that are locked up. There's about 270 beds there have special needs, special education, but that's really low for a facility. The estimates typically are around 70%. So at least a third have the diagnosis, have the paperwork to be in special education, but the lawsuit alleges that there's probably a lot more that haven't been identified and haven't received the services. The federal lawsuit is a pretty big deal. It's rare for the feds to weigh in on a case like this, and it sort of signals that they felt pretty strongly that the parties involved, which are the probation department and the county office of education, which sort of have been pointing the fingers at each other, the feds sort of weighed in and said, you're both responsible for the education and the services that these children need.
So what kinds of disabilities, Tom, do these juveniles have, and what are the conditions like in solitary confinement for them?
Well, they run the gamut of all kinds of problems that a child can have. You know, a lot of them come from very bad upbringing. Some of them have been, involved in seeing murders. Many of them live in dire poverty. Many of them are ganged up. So it's the run of things that might take an average kid and put them into a different kind of mental framework. And some of them really do have clinically serious medical issues going on in their minds. So the problem becomes, what do you do with these people? And one of the things that has become a matter of choice in many places is if they're not going to cooperate, the one thing they will understand better than anything else is total deprivation. That's pretty much what happens. They are put in this cell, as was described in the tape piece, and there they sit. And the more they rail against it, the more likely they are to get more of it. And in many cases, that only makes matters worse. Now, having said that, the other side of that coin is very clear, that some of these people are very bad actors. They know how to push buttons, they know how to pull chains, they know exactly what they want to do. They have no love or no interest in doing anything that's pro for society because of what they expect to do when they get out, if and when they get out. So.
Well, and in fact, that's what the county probation department says, that some of these juveniles are bad, and they're locked up in solitary confinement for safety reasons.
Right, but then there's the law. And the law has some very specific requirements that these are not supposed to be penitentiaries, that they're supposed to be supportive, rehabilitative environments, and that they are to be educated. There's not a choice about educating. They have to be educated. The law is very clear on this, and that's what the lawsuit is really about.
Yeah, the law is very clear that these are not supposed to be penal institutions. In fact, it talks about them being sort of home-like environment. And if you look at the pictures of the solitary confinement, which no one has really gotten to see, we've seen some pictures, but journalists haven't been allowed to see the inside. But, you know, it's a cell. It looks like an adult cell with a cement block bed with a mattress on it, and it doesn't look like a home.
Well, Daffodil, you've been taking a wider perspective on this in your reporting. You looked at Rikers Island in New York, and you're looking at some other cities to see what they're doing right, perhaps. What are you finding out?
Well, you know, one of the things that's interesting about the Department of Justice weighing in is that one of the biggest studies that they've done is that they found that juveniles who are detained in juvenile facilities, half of the suicides that occur in those facilities happen while they are in isolation. So there have been studies done on adults that find that when you put them in isolation, deprive them, they come out and they're more violent. So it actually doesn't help the jail system. It actually makes things worse because you're not actually, it's not like a timeout. And I think a lot of people tend to think, well, what's a little time in your room? It's just, you can cool down. And, you know, but most facilities, and what we're finding is that because there's nothing federally that exists, very few states have, only 6 states have some kind of ban when it comes to juveniles and juvenile facilities. Other than that,
bans on solitary confinement.
So other than that, it's up to counties, it's up to the facilities themselves. It is a chaos of information is what the UN Special Investigator on Torture calls it, because he said there is nothing nationally to regulate this practice among kids. So what we're finding is that it's really difficult. It's almost like a secretive practice because no one really wants to talk about it or even call it that.
What is clear, though, is interesting, is that this solitary confinement, it's the most expensive incarceration there is by any standard, because when these folks are taken out of in that particular facility, there have to be 3 probation officers whenever they come out. So it's not like, you know, one person walks them out and all that stuff. It's a labor-intensive thing, extraordinarily expensive, and again, there's a culture that kind of develops in these places, and how that culture develops goes to the issue of, well, you know, what are we going to do about these people? And it's probably for many easier to just put them in a box than have to deal with them, because you know that when they're out of the box, they're going to be trying to deal with you. And it is a very bad thing, and it's extraordinarily expensive. And one of the issues here is that the states and the counties just don't have the money to do it the way they would like to do it unless they change the way they do it.
Well, we should note that we invited the county probation department and also the Office of Education to come on the show. They both declined. But we did hear from the disability rights advocates, the group that filed this lawsuit in the first place. And, you know, they make the point, and this, I quote them now, locking youth with disabilities in solitary confinement exacerbates their disabilities, does not provide an effective deterrent from future misconduct, and thus makes further solitary confinement more likely. Such barbaric and illegal policies and practices must stop. And it seems that this is bolstered by that Justice Department study you mentioned earlier. Are you finding any cities or departments out there that perhaps are doing a good job of handling disabled juveniles?
Yes, in part of our investigation, we spent time in a facility in California in Santa Cruz that actually has done everything in their power to avoid solitary confinement, and they have reduce their population. That's one of the first things they tried to do, and that was working with the county and looking at who was being brought in and held there, and did they need to be held there. And so that was the first significant step they took. And the thing that they say is now they have people with serious charges in there. So it's not like because one of the arguments that are made is that, well, these are dangerous kids. We have to isolate them because they are aggressive, and there's nothing else we can do with them. And they gave us some examples, and we met some kids who were extremely aggressive, and they try to be as creative as possible. And that means they have a lot of programs for the kids. There's a different culture there. They don't treat them like criminals. They try their best not to treat them like criminals, and they give them a lot of programs, and so they keep them busy. These are teenagers. They get bored very easily. They have a lot of testosterone. They're growing. They're changing. They need to be busy, and so a lot of times fights start because they're bored. That's what happens in New York.
Right.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if you were going to say something. So, you know, you have to, they've done all this work, and they've partnered with a lot of community organizations.
Well, and speaking of programs, getting back to the issue of education, I mean, by law, they're mandated to provide special education for these juveniles. How does the Office of Education get away with saying, sorry, that's not our responsibility, Jill?
Well, I think what they've sort of, as I said, they've been pointing the finger at each other, saying, well, look, they're responsible for keeping these children, and therefore, if they haven't been solitary confinement, you know, they're in charge of them. And the probation department sort of points back and says, well, they're in charge of the education. And so there's sort of this bickering. I think that this case in particular, the issue in Contra Costa County is raising very much the issue of solitary confinement, whether that should be, and certainly there's legislation pending to get rid of it across the state. Right now it's sort of a crapshoot of where you commit your crime, whether you could be in solitary. But this case specifically truly is about the services that children should receive while they're incarcerated, whether they're in solitary or not. They have a constitutional right to an education in California, and federal and state right to special education.
Well, and there's a hearing on this in March, and I think then a federal judge will decide whether this will be granted class action status. So we'll certainly stay on top of that, and I know you will stay on top of that as well. Jill Tucker, Daffodil Altan, and Tom Vacar, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Coming up, a look at troubled public housing projects in Richmond. But first, University of Missouri football star Michael Sam ignited a national conversation earlier this month by announcing he's gay. This weekend in Indianapolis, he'll be under scrutiny at the annual gathering of top college prospects who work out for NFL coaches and executives. If Sam is drafted in May, he would become the first openly gay player on a pro football team. Here in the Bay Area, Golden State Warriors president Rick Welts understands what Sam is facing on a very personal level. Welts is the highest-ranking openly gay executive in men's professional sports. He spoke earlier with Scott Schaefer.
Rick Welts, welcome.
Thank you.
It's been about 3 years since you came out. You were with the Phoenix Suns at the time. Tell me what's been going through your mind in these last 2 weeks as you've seen Michael Sam with his revelation. Well,
it's 2014, so my conversations with him have been by text. I haven't actually met him yet, but we've had some interesting conversations. I think it's just absolutely remarkable what's transpired over the last 3 years. I think this is kind of an exclamation point on the things that have happened in our society and certainly in sports over the last 3 years. And I think, you know, we have a very special moment happening right now, and one that I think a lot of people are going to be paying close attention to.
What are these coaches and these GMs going to be looking for this weekend in Indianapolis, and besides how quickly he can run the 40-yard dash?
Well, I think a lot of it is about character. They want players on their teams that fit the profile of the type of people that they're looking for, and I think that means you want to look inside a guy and understand what makes him tick. And I think Michael Sam happens to be uniquely suited to play the part that he signed up for here.
What are they going to be looking for from him that they might not otherwise have been looking for now that he's out?
Well, I think, you know, every team will be looking for something a little bit different, but I think what he's proven by doing what he's done so far, especially with his team in Missouri, where he confided in his teammates a year ago, he went through a full season of football and did incredibly well. I think he's proven maybe that he is the right guy to be in the position that he's in today.
It's been over a year since Jason Collins came out. He was a free agent at the time, but had been in the NBA for 12 years with, I think, 6 different teams. And at the time when he came out, you said, and I'm quoting, that more doors will open for him than will close. And yet he hasn't played another game in the NBA. I'm wondering, do you feel that his coming out closed a door to the NBA for him?
Well, I think it's one of those questions we'll never know. He did this at the very end of his career.
He's only 34 years old.
Well, but in NBA
he didn't think
years,
it was the end of his career.
Right, in NBA years, that's quite old. And for a player who'd been marginally contributing over the course of the previous 2 seasons, right? So I don't know that we'll ever know that. I think if you talk to him, as I do, I think he has had a lot of doors open, personally as well as professionally, just don't happen to be on the basketball court.
He was, as you said, I don't want to say a marginal player, but he wasn't LeBron, right, and he wasn't Kobe. So I'm wondering, does that mean that teams look at these situations as, is he worth the trouble that it's going to bring?
You know, I don't think you can generalize that across every team. Every team has different ownership. Every team has different management. And I think I have no doubt that there were teams in the NBA who looked at the situation and said, you know, that might be more than we want to sign up for right now. But I also believe there are teams in the NBA, as I hope there are NFL teams with Michael Sam, who can look way beyond that and realize that this is about winning games. And if a player can help win games, he can be on our roster.
When Jason Collins came out, the coach of the Warriors, Mark Jackson, said that as a Christian man, I have beliefs of what's right and what's wrong. He said, on the other hand, I know Jason Collins and his family. I'm praying for them. That, to me, did not sound like open arms for an openly gay player for the Warriors. Did that comment from the coach disappoint you?
Yes. And Mark and I have the kind of relationship where we could have a conversation about that. And I think, you know, that was in some way taken out of context. And I think, you know, Mark and I are in a really good place right now. And I think that, you know, how he feels about the issue is not inconsistent with what we would hope as any employee of the Warriors. And I think that he probably didn't say it exactly the way he wished he'd said it at the time. So it did disappoint me. But I think since we've certainly talked it out, and we're in a good place.
I want to ask you a question about the Warriors arena proposed for the San Francisco Waterfront. Originally, you were hoping to be in the city in that arena for the 2017 season. That's now been pushed back. What's the status of it?
Full speed ahead is the status. It's pushed back because we're doing exactly what we promised to do. And we promised to take every bit of regulatory input, every bit of public input. We're now in our 3rd complete design of the project. There are not enough days between now and 2017 to get through the CEQA environmental impact report process. So we're going to open in 2018, but we're full speed ahead.
Have you been surprised by the pushback, the mood in the city about development that we saw in the last election?
We certainly expected complications. It is San Francisco, after all. I don't think anyone really could foresee kind of this shift in attitude toward development in the city, shifting from some of the topics that we've been focused on to the issue of affordability in the city. I think that's a new development that I'm not sure anyone saw coming. So listen, this is the process we signed up for. There are no shortcuts to it. We've completely embraced it. We're completely committed to bringing the Warriors to San Francisco.
All right, Rick Welts, thanks. Good luck to you and the Warriors this year.
Thank you.
And shortly after that interview was taped yesterday, the Brooklyn Nets basketball team expressed interest in Jason Collins, who reveals last year that he's gay. If signed, Collins would be the first openly gay player in the NBA. Every year, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, names the worst of the worst public housing agencies. Out of more than 4,000 across the nation, just 44 were on the list, including the city of Richmond. In fact, Richmond has been on that list since 2009. Some of the poorest, oldest, and most vulnerable people in the Bay Area live there in squalor and fear due to mismanagement and neglect. That's the finding of a series of reports produced by KQED, the Center for Investigative Reporting, and the San Francisco Chronicle. Here's our story.
Before he went blind 25 years ago, Wardell Jones was a mechanic for the Air Force. Remarkably, he has taught himself to paint. His apartment in Richmond's Nevin Plaza public housing project is filled with paintings of the landscapes he remembers and imagines.
Hey Wardell, it's Amy Harris, the reporter.
On this day, he's meeting with Amy Julia Harris, a journalist with the Center for Investigative Reporting, who for the past 6 months has been documenting mismanagement and poor conditions in Richmond's public housing complexes. In Wardell's case, he hasn't had heat for more than a year. The Housing Authority says it fixed the problem in October.
Can you feel up there?
I don't feel anything.
Okay, it's on now. Can you hear the motor is running? But it doesn't come out. No heat. No heat.
So, Wardell, can you show us what do you do for heat?
This my stove, I turn it on for about 2-3 hours. Then it heats up, and I come back and I turn it off.
You do that every day?
Every day.
It says on here that it works.
You don't feel the heat, huh?
Nope, I don't feel anything.
Okay.
Down the road is the 6-story Hacienda housing complex. On the surface, it looks like many public housing projects across the nation, but residents call it the Haci hellhole. Years of chronic mismanagement have led to a host of problems, like a roof that has been leaking for 8 years.
They've had to evacuate the entire 6th floor of Hacienda because there's mold and these stalactites of chemicals that are just dripping down from the roof.
Squatters sometimes use the empty apartments. On the floors below, there are a host of problems. Geneva Eaton, a grandmother of 12, has for the last year been complaining about a terrible infestation problem. Workers have come, but the problem persists. Every morning, she sets traps and washes her floors and walls in bleach. Sometimes she catches up to 12 mice per day. Her decrepit refrigerator remains infested with cockroaches despite repeated requests to replace it.
This is a health hazard to me. Bugs. I don't do bugs. I don't do mice. I'm scared of them. We shouldn't have to live like this. We're not dogs.
On sunny days, Hacienda's courtyard is a gathering place, but at night, it can be frightening for elderly residents. Lighting here was broken for 2 years and only fixed in December. Rhonda Marshall was robbed twice.
They had a gun too. And you know what it was? Youngsters. And I know they belong to this building because we don't have no youngsters in this building.
Visitors are supposed to enter at a security desk. But intruders have easy access because this gate almost never locks, as resident Dennis Lewis demonstrated.
And you supposedly need a key card, but as you see, you don't.
Right. Residents have repeatedly complained about Cypress Security, the firm which guards buildings in Richmond's public housing projects. At the January meeting of the Housing Authority Advisory Commission, Jackie Thompson wanted to know what needs to be done to find a new firm.
How come this commission doesn't know that we are entering into a new contract?
Tim Jones heads the Richmond Public Housing Authority.
So if in fact it is the opinion of this board that we're not moving forward with this particular firm, we would make that decision then. But the original contract was...
Every month they complain about the job that the security guards are doing and have questions with the competency of this firm. And they've brought these concerns to Tim Jones, meeting after meeting after meeting.
Internal U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development memos have criticized Tim Jones' overall leadership, chastising his agency for a total lack of internal controls.
HUD called him straight out ineffective, and it said that he failed in a few key areas. So one job of the housing director is to just make sure that the finances are in order. And under Tim Jones's watch, the Housing Authority is $7 million in debt. They haven't turned in their audits to the feds on time for years and years. HUD also said he didn't even respond to their emails.
While Jones does have his supporters on the Advisory Commission, several are critical of him. None more so than Sylvia Gray White, a retired former public housing manager with decades of experience.
I think it's the director.
What do you mean you think it's the director?
I don't think he knows what he's doing.
And as we're talking to her, we just hear this beeping horn. Then it turns out it was another Advisory Commission member who said, look, you're not allowed to talk to the press. You're saying all of these negative things. Don't talk.
You can't shut me up. You can't pay me to shut up. No. That's why they put me on this board, because I will tell you what's going on.
Jones had agreed to an interview for this story, but citing Commissioner White's on-camera comments, he backed out. At Richmond City Hall, Mayor Gail McLaughlin says she remains confident in the Housing Authority's executive director.
I have always found Mr. Jones to be extremely responsive, and every time I bring something to his attention, he's right there. So I'll continue to work with him.
The problem, says the mayor, a longtime Green Party leader, is not Tim Jones, but the federal government and misplaced priorities.
I'm working hard to do what I can. But don't lay at the feet of Richmond that we're not working hard enough when we have a president who is putting money into war and a president who has bailed out the banks to the tune of $29 trillion.
In Richmond, the decision to hire or fire the executive director of housing primarily rests with the city. But HUD's top official in the western U.S., Ophelia Bascal, says there are other options.
There's a provision in there if we get to a point where we believe the authority is totally mismanaged, where we can step in and take over the authority. Sort of it's the nuclear kind of option that we come to at the very end.
A Freedom of Information request revealed that HUD staff thought firing Jones in 2012 might help resolve the problems, but noted likely opposition from Richmond's mayor and city council. The federal agency put Richmond under a strict improvement plan that, if not followed, could end in the nuclear option. Bascal says the Richmond Housing Authority has made improvements.
Richmond is on track with its corrective action plan.
For Geneva Eaton, it is too little, too late.
Instead of fixing it right, here they are down there, making it look good for her downstairs, but look at the people up here, how we're living up here.
She says it's time for a change.
I ain't touching that thing.
In response to the reporting for this series, changes have already occurred. Richmond city manager ordered inspections of all 715 units of the city's public housing. He also plans to terminate the contract with the security firm in charge of patrolling the two worst housing complexes. At a city council meeting this week, Tim Jones apologized, admitting that his agency has fallen short but denied any systemic failures. He also recommended that Hacienda be demolished and residents get vouchers to move elsewhere. The council is expected to take up the issue again in a special session in the coming weeks. For full coverage of this story and for all of KQED's news coverage, please go to kqednews.org. That's all for tonight. I'm Thuy Vu. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.
Funding for investigative reporting on KQED Newsroom provided by the Gruber Family Foundation.